everybody, and welcome to another Top 5 board gaming video. Today's video has nothing to do with board games, or really nothing to do with hobby games in general. Today's video is all about these little guys. Just a regular, good old deck of playing cards. This is something that I have never talked about on my channel, but the fact is that there are a lot of games that use these that I really enjoy playing. I never ever get to play them though. I'm mostly into hobby gaming. So what I wanted to do is something that's a little bit unique today. I wanted to talk about several games that I enjoy that utilize regular playing cards, and I wanted to talk about them in the context of hobby games. So what I'll do is I'll talk about a game that I play with these types of cards and what hobby game or games may have a similar feel to it, essentially. So we can still say that it's a board gaming video. That's effectively what we're going for. But either way, I hope that you enjoy the video. As always, please let me know any and all thoughts in the comments below that you guys think. Again, playing cards, there are so many different games that you can play with them. I would love to hear your guys' favorites as well as your opinions on mine, as always. And if you haven't done so already, please take a look at my Facebook and my Twitter pages so that you can see when I post new videos and do live streams and all of that kind of cool stuff. But with that, we're going to get started with my number 5. At number 5, I have a game that probably shouldn't come as too much of a surprise for most of you, considering what a lot of my videos have been about and what I discuss a lot with hobby games, and that is Solitaire. Solitaire is essentially the quintessential game that we all grew up playing on our old and awesome Windows XP computers, right? Between that and Space Cadet Pinball, we were just set for life. But really, Solitaire is a great, fun little game that you can play with just a regular deck of cards. It's really simple to set up. The rules are very, very easy to follow, and it's just a nice little game that you can play through. Now, more often than not, I don't know anybody who plays with an actual physical deck of cards anymore, because why would you bother? In fact, most of these games, people aren't going to play with a physical deck of cards very much. But Solitaire is just, it's a good game, and it's one of the relatively rare ones in the 52 deck type games that allow you to play solo, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. You guys know I love solo games, whether it's Mage Knight or Thunderstone or any of these other games. I've talked about them for many years. Essentially, since I started doing this channel, I've talked about games that you can play solo, and that's really why I enjoy Solitaire. It doesn't really require a great deal of strategy, but there is a little bit of an element to it at least, and it's essentially more about timing than anything else. But it's a fun little game. If you've never tried it before, I would recommend at least checking it out, and if nothing else, just download an app on your phone and it'll teach you how to play. But regardless, Solitaire is my number 5. At number 4, I've got what is sort of the quintessential party game for a 52 deck of cards, and that is I Doubt It, or BS, or whatever you want to call it, where essentially you have people who have a hand of cards and they're putting them down face down in the center of the table one at a time. So you start with the aces and then go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. And you just say the number of the cards that you're putting down, and if somebody calls you out and says BS or I doubt it, then you have to reveal what you put down, and if you were telling the truth, then they have to take the entire pile into their hand, and the goal is to get rid of all the cards. So this is like the really fun bluffing party game that you play out on the deck after having a few drinks or whatever it happens to be, type of thing. So I always liken this to things like the Resistance and Coup, a little bit of like Wits and Wagers maybe, because you are taking a bit of a risk and stuff like that. So that's sort of the mentality that you have with this. It's really light, really simple to play, really fun, and in part that's why it's a little bit lower on this list, is because strategically there's not a whole lot there, but it is a really fun, friendly party game, and that's really all it is, and that's what it's made for, and it doesn't make any illusions to be anything beyond that. But because of that, BS, or No Doubt, or I Doubt It rather, is my number 4. 3, I've got the first sort of casino game on this particular list, and it's one that I've been playing since I was a kid. You can take that to mean whatever you want, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that I've known how to play casino games since I was a child, but suffice to say the game itself is Blackjack, also known as 21, with the idea being that you're just trying to get cards that equal a total of 21 in front of you, and then you'll win and you'll get a decent amount of money, or chips, or whatever it happens to be. So the general idea behind this game is that it's all mathematical ratios and the good and the bad and all that kind of stuff. Now obviously counting cards is very highly frowned upon, so don't do it, but at the same time that's really what it is. You're going against mathematical odds. And that type of strategic decision making and stuff are things that I really enjoy with hobby games. A lot of hobby games do this same type of pressure luck gameplay where we've got things like King of Tokyo or Zombie Dice. Zombie Dice is really more akin to Blackjack, because if you get too much of the good thing, then it's a bad thing and you're out of the round and you get nothing. So you're actually eliminated. In Blackjack, obviously, you're going against the dealer, whoever is actually dealing out the cards, whether it's a casino or a family member, friend, whatever it happens to be, however you have your game set up. But suffice it to say, it's a fun game, it's a good game. I like the strategic value of the decision making and to an extent the tracking, but there's not a whole lot there. The other major thing is that if you're just playing this with friends or family, then it's pretty boring for whoever's actually doing the dealing. Because the problem is they're just sort of sitting there doling out cards. And that's not really very exciting. That doesn't make for a very fun night for that particular person. So it can be kind of difficult in that sense. And that's why this is a little bit lower on the list. But suffice to say, Blackjack or 21 is my number 3. At number 2, I've got the other really major casino game on this particular list, and it's one that we always see all the time, and that is poker. Yes, we are all part of this giant wave of late night poker and World Poker Tour and all this kind of stuff, and yes, my favorite particular subsection of poker is Texas Hold'em, where everybody only gets 2 cards and then you have shared cards in the middle. The reason I love this game so much is because of the bluffing. You guys know I'm big on the social interactivity of games, whether it's hobby games or other games, and poker really does a great job for that because you're actually putting out bets, and so you can indicate as much or as little as you want. You can try to bluff other players, you can try to scare them off, you can try to lure them in, all of that kind of stuff. You have a lot of the negotiation and the bluffing aspects. And so I mean, it's a big thing, but I put it akin to something like Cosmic Encounter, my favorite board game of all time, because it's really heavily negotiation based. It really is. Pretty much any hobby game where you have negotiation and bluffing and that kind of stuff is going to at least be like a surface similar to poker. The one thing is that, again, there are a ton of different variants. You've got draw, you've got stud, you've got hold'em, you've got Oklahoma versus Texas hold'em, high, low, blah, 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 blah. There are so many different variants to poker, it's absolutely ridiculous. But again, I personally enjoy Texas hold'em myself, and this is a game that I am willing to play like all night long and all this kind of stuff, as long as I still have my little pile of chips, obviously. It's a fun game. It is a great game. The thing is that there's not a lot in terms of pure strategy for it, because you only have so much information. There's a lot of hidden information with it. It's a lot about the social reading and stuff like that. And frankly, I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy it. So that's why it's only number 2. And hopefully you guys will understand when I reveal what the number 1 is. But suffice to say, poker is my number 2 game. At number 1, I've got the odd game out in this particular case, the one that doesn't use a standard deck of 52 cards. And unfortunately, I don't have a deck that actually allows you to play this particular game, but it is called Pinochle. Pinochle is a trick-taking slash meld-based game, similar to things like hearts and spades and bridge and gin rummy and all these kinds of things. I personally just enjoy Pinochle particularly because that's the one that I learned very, very well and that I was playing with my friends all the time. And the reason that this is number one on the list is simply because it is very heavily strategic. In this particular game, you can play with teams, you can play without teams, you can just play individually, you can play pretty much however you want, but the idea is that you have a trump suit that will be taking the particular tricks, and on top of that you have to make a bet as to how many points you're going to be able to get. You get meld for your cards, which means that you have like specific sets of cards that you're able to do and all of this kind of stuff. Incidentally, one of the games I forgot to mention for poker was Battle Line. Battle Line is essentially about meld, and that's what poker is basically about. But suffice to say, Pinochle even more so, especially if you're playing on teams, because then you have to like really communicate silently with your partner to figure out what is it that you need, how are you going to get it, how are you going to do the bidding, all of that kind of stuff. It's really an incredibly, surprisingly deep game. And that's the case with most meld slash trick-taking games. Essentially, I think Gin is probably the one that most people are familiar with, but for me personally, Pinochle just takes the cake. The reason that the deck is different is because you just have a completely different set of cards. The way that it works, you've got, I think it's only 48 cards, and it's like double of the high level cards for all the suits. So you have like 2 aces, 2 tens, 2 kings, etc., etc., etc. And I think it goes down to 9 if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, you've got all sorts of different stuff, all sorts of different melds that you can get. And as far as hobby games are concerned, this is where you're talking about pretty deep strategy. Whether you're talking about team versus teams, in something like, if you're doing war games, like something like Mythic Battles or things like that, where you can play with either 2 or 4 players, Mage Wars, things along those lines, or just talking about strategy with trick-taking and set collection and things along those lines, like Seven Wonders. I mean, you do have a bit of a drafting element with Pinochle, which is kind of nice, but not nearly as much as with hobby games. But you really do start to see a lot of strategic depth with it. And that's really why it is my number one, Pinochle. Well folks, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this pretty random video about my favorite card-based games, deck of card-based games. And again, this is just like barely even scratching the surface of all of the card games that exist. For example, everybody knows and loves Baccarat because of James Bond. The thing is, I'm just like, wow, you only care about the last number. Congratulations. Why don't you just play Blackjack instead? But a lot of people love it. And same thing like with poker. Do you prefer stud poker or draw poker or anything along those lines? Or do you just prefer a game that I didn't mention at all? You guys know I'd love to hear from you, and especially for something like this that's so different, so unique, so sort of off the wall from my particular channel. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please make sure that you check out my Facebook and my Twitter pages if you haven't done so already. And again, comment anything and everything you think about this in the comments below. But with that, thank you very, very much again for watching, and I will see you next time.